Daniel does a great job. Thank you, Daniel. In the reading of our text out of Job chapter 2, verses 1 to 10, you may have noticed the word integrity used a couple of times. The first time when God and Satan conversed, and the Lord reminded the adversary of Job's integrity, that he has held his integrity in spite of the fact that everything that he had was taken away from him except Mrs. Job. And then in verse 9, Mrs. Job approached him and asked him, "Why do you retain your integrity? Curse God and die." And his reply to that was, "You speak as the foolish women speak." I'm interested in that word integrity in verses 3 and 9, and I want us to focus on that a little bit this morning. Integrity. We might use the word character. It defines who a person is. Integrity is something that Job clung to. He held on to it. He latched on and would not let go of his integrity. Now, who has integrity? Well, Job had it. Do you have it? Do I? Why should you retain it? Should you retain it? And if you don't retain your integrity, what happens? Questions to think about, questions to ponder. And you know, and I know, that a person who does not have integrity is capable of doing a lot of things. Without integrity, a person will lie, they will cheat, they will steal, they will sell out, they will compromise, and they will give up. A person without integrity has no character. Officer Tommy Norman, on his ads on TV, will remind you, don't be a broken promise. And by that, he's saying, retain your integrity. That's part of it. Integrity. I want us to think about that a little bit. I'm going to ask you a couple of questions this morning that pertain to it. And one of them I've already asked, and that is, what is it? What does the word integrity mean? And how do you know it when you see it? Well, we've seen it in Job, and we know it in him because his integrity is what held him up all the way through the book. It's about his integrity. Now, it's a matter of human suffering, the book, why people suffer the way they do. But Job did not sin with his lips, it tells us early on, and he held on to his integrity. Sometimes integrity is not an easy thing to hold on to retain. Not only Job, but David. David had integrity. In 1 Kings 9, verses 4 and 5, when Solomon became king, the Lord said to Solomon, "Now if you will do like your dad. And if you, like David, who in his integrity followed me, kept my commandments, kept my word and my statutes, if you will do that, then I will see to it that you do not lack a man on the throne from here on out. But if you don't, then there are serious consequences. So David had integrity for all of his errors. He had integrity. So David had it, Job had it. I read something the other day that impressed me with a modern example of integrity. And I like to point these things out when I can. In a publication that I receive in the mail from Hillsdale College, their newsletter, Victor Davis Hanson spoke on campus. He delivered the commencement address at Hillsdale on May the 10th of this year. And as he spoke to the student body, he recalled his first visit to their campus in 2004, that he'd been there 21 years ago. And 21 years ago, 3 things impressed him about the school and about the campus. And it's the first point that he made that I want to bring before you. He said back in 2004, when he first visited the campus, it occurred to him that he had left his bicycle unlocked at a certain spot on campus. And the day after, when he realized he had left his bicycle unlocked, he thought to himself, well, a couple of things will probably have happened. It's either been vandalized or stolen. And when he went to see if his bicycle was still there, it was just where he left it, just like he left it. And he said to the student body at Hillsdale that I cannot envision that kind of thing on any other modern-day college campus. He said, especially not in California, where I've lived and worked for 20 years. Now, you may shrug at how trivial that sounds, but it's an example of integrity. And integrity, because his bike was not vandalized, it was not stolen, it was just left where he left it, unlocked. That's integrity, an example of it. And you think, well, that's a little thing. No, it's not a little thing. It's a big thing. Because as trivial as it sounds, that is a true test of human character right there. And it speaks well that his bike was left where he left it, and he found it. Just an example that comes to my mind. Now, integrity has its counterfeits. We sometimes mistake integrity for certain things, and we mistake certain things for integrity, and they're really not. So it has its counterfeits for sure. Reputation is one of them. Reputation. We all have a reputation, and then we have character. Reputation and character. Okay? Those two things. So reputation is how people know you. That's your reputation. Character is who you are. Integrity is who you are. Integrity is who you are when nobody's looking, when in the dark, when nobody's looking. Character is who you are. And Jesus in John 1:47, when he saw Nathanael, he said, "Behold, an Israelite in whom is no guile." My mother's Bible says, deceit. Deceit. And Nathanael says, "Well, how do you know me?" So that's integrity, character. He knew him to the core. All right. Each of us can be known that way. So there's reputation, then there's character, and then also another counterfeit that comes to mind is education. I like education. I can appreciate education just as well as anybody. But we have an idea that says, well, if people know better, they'll do better. No, they won't. Not in all cases, definitely. Because integrity goes beyond education. People can have one degree after another and no integrity. In 1 Timothy 3 and verse 7, some are ever learning, but never able to come to a knowledge of the truth. So there's learning and there's truth, and they may be different things. And integrity is not religion. I'd like to be able to say that it is, but it isn't. It is not religion. Well, why do you say that? Well, because in Acts 10, in verse 2, Cornelius had integrity. He was devout. He feared God. He gave much alms to the people. He prayed to God always. That's integrity across the board. But he didn't have Jesus. At least not at that point he didn't. He did later. And then I think of the flip side of the record. I think of Diotrephes in 3 John. Diotrephes had Christ. He wore the name of Christ, but he didn't have integrity. He didn't accept the authority of John, the other apostles. He would not accept evangelists coming in, supporting them and helping them on their way. He had no part in that. He had nothing to do with it. He had no integrity. He was a short-horned deacon. He was a troublemaker in the church, sometimes as we meet on occasion. No integrity. So religion is not integrity. Now, it may teach integrity, it may embody integrity, it may help you, but they're not always the same. So what is integrity? And then, does it really matter? Integrity, whether you retain it or not, whether you have it or not, whether you retain it or not, does it matter, really? Well, I want to say it does. It matters in the church. If you're a member of the body of Christ, you're there, and so it matters in the church. Why do I say that? Well, because in 1 Timothy 3, verses 1 through 12, you have what we call the qualifications of elders and deacons, and every single one of those qualifications delve into integrity. Character, spirituality, root qualities that make men the kind of leaders that God would have them to be. So it matters, yes, in the church, and it matters in the home. We know that. Ephesians 6, verses 1 through 4, children, young people, obey your parents in the Lord. Why? For this is right. Honor your father and your mother. This is the first commandment with promise, and it'll go well with you throughout your life. Integrity, young folks, integrity. Fathers, don't provoke your children to wrath. Bring them up in the nurture and the admonition of the Lord. Parental integrity. We've watched the home basically fall apart the last few decades. Why? For lack of integrity. Marriages don't fall apart for lack of good intentions, but for lack of integrity. So it matters in the home. It matters on the job. You better believe it does. On the job. Well, why do you say that? Well, I say that because a person can be hired because they have a certain skill set and fired for lack of integrity. Why do we have background checks in our culture today? Because integrity is so rare. Why do we have metal detectors in schools and federal buildings? Because of integrity is not there. But in rare cases. So yeah, integrity, it matters. You better believe it does. And it matters in our country, in our nation. Proverbs 14 verse 34 reminds us that righteousness exalts a nation, but sin is a reproach to any people. Integrity matters in this country. And where you live and where the rubber meets the road, integrity matters. You say, well, what does that have to do with me? Because you're a human being with integrity, hopefully, prayerfully. Do you retain it? You better. Need to. Integrity. How many people at some point in their life grasp an understanding and an appreciation of God's truth, the gospel? They understand it, they appreciate it, they agree with it. They say, yeah, man, that's absolutely right, and I know absolutely what I need to do. That's integrity. But then how oftentimes will people reach that point of recognition and integrity and agreeableness with the gospel and yet go on and never, ever do anything about it? Never obey it. Never take the step. Never allow that integrity to move them forward. Now, is there anyone that might be in that kind of a situation here? That in your integrity you recognize the value of the gospel, the need for it, and you've never taken the step to allow your integrity to move you? Now you can. Why do you retain your integrity? Well, because your soul might depend on it. So I'm urging you to retain your integrity. And if you know what you need to do this morning, to please do it while we stand and sing to encourage you.